organizing committee then. And NBI Director Melvin Matibag, who announced the investigation just yesterday, is scheduled to take the witness stand next week. An interesting trial day indeed.
Dapat po ba kaming manggamba? Hindi ba po tayo ay malayang korte? Tayo po ay may karapatan na binibigay ng konstitusyon na magsagawa po ng pagdinig nito.
But it isn't unfair to me and unfair to the court that kung kailan siya patatawag siya sa Monday, intimidate mo ako, hindi kita tatanungin sa Monday dahil mag-a-announce ka na iimbestigahan mo. So wag mo try itibagin tong representation na to o itong impeachment court because what you're doing is not helping. You investigate whatever you want to investigate. You want to investigate ba't ako nagpatubo ng balbas? Investigate mo, no problem with me. Pero wag mo nang i-announce kasi nga naaapektuhan yung integrity ng court.
He could do it quietly. Go ahead. Pero anong purpose niya? Nagyayabang siya? What's the purpose?
Walang kaduda-duda. May karapatan at kapangyarihan ng impeachment court na busisin ang mga bank records ni VP Sara. Ang hiling ng prosecution ay mailabas ang buong katotohanan so that this court may know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
But Your Honors, impeachment is not a magic word or a magic wand that one can just wave to transform an illegal act into a legal act, to transform unlawful access to lawful access. That is not what the Constitution contemplates. In our legal system, it is not permitted to accuse now and then just look for proof later on.
For the information of the parties as well as the viewing public, in caucus, the senator judges agreed to study the matter more, given that not everyone has actually completed reading the memoranda given by the parties and submitted by the parties, and given that they want more time to look into the complicated issues involved in these two motions for the issuance of subpoena.
The Senate Impeachment Court has temporarily postponed the issuance of a subpoena for the tax and bank records of Vice President Sara Duterte and her husband, Attorney Man Scarpio. They said this will instead be discussed on Monday, July 20, so that senator judges can further study the matter. But before that, the defense and prosecution teams debated on why these documents should or should not be made public. And live from the Senate, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos joins us again. Arles, what were the main points raised by both sides?
Sa ika-6 na araw ng impeachment trial, naglatag ng kani-kanilang posisyon ang prosekusyon at depensa patungkol nga sa pagsabina sa tax at bank records ni Vice President Sara Duterte at niyang kanyang asawa na si Attorney Manasseh Scarpio. Sa pagkakataong ito, dalawa lang ang nagkaroon o nagpresenta ng kanilang oral arguments. Yan ay sina House Prosecutor Attorney Chaldoc, at ang Defense Counsel ni VP Sara na si Attorney Michael Poa. Binigyang diin ni Attorney Jokno na buong katotohanan daw ang dapat malaman sa impeachment court at magagawa lang yan kung maglalabas ito ng subpoena para sa mga tax at bank records ni VP Sara, partikular na sa issue ng kanyang umano'y unexplained wealth. Sa statement ni Jokno, ginamit pa niya mga dating pahayag ni na Presiding Officer Cheese Escudero at Senator Judge Alan Peter Cayetano tungkol sa impeachment noon ni dating Chief Justice Renato Corona. Pakinggan natin yan.
I believe it was then Senator Judge, now Presiding Officer Francis Escudero, who raised the question, will the impeachment court consider only Corona's acts as Chief Justice? This after observing that some exhibits predated his appointment as Chief Justice. When Philippine Savings Bank President Pascual Garcia III testified before this court in the same Corona trial, he refused to answer the question of then-Senator Judge Franklin Drilon on the starting balance of Corona's 2 peso-denominated accounts. But, if I'm not mistaken, It was Senator Judge Alan Peter Cayetano who said that records of initial deposits are among the quote-unquote opening documents that should have been brought to the impeachment court. Kailangan makita ng publiko at ng mga senator judge ang tunay na kulay ng vice-presidente at larawan ng kanyang buong pagkatao bilang isang lingkod bayan.
Gumanti naman ng argumento si Defense Attorney Michael Poa. Giit niya, dapat may due process ang lahat ng parte ng impeachment proceedings, kabilang na ang pag-issue ng subpoena sa tax records ng bise.
No one is above the law. But in the same manner, no one must fall below or be outside the protection of the law. Impeachment is indeed a powerful constitutional tool. But Your Honors, impeachment is not a magic word or a magic wand that one can just wave to transform an illegal act into a legal act, to transform unlawful access to lawful access.
Sabi pa ng defense, hindi pwedeng basta-bastang gamitin ang kapangyarihan na mag-issue ng subpoena para lamang sa isang umano'y fishing expedition. Giit pa ni Poa, ang impeachment complaint na Sabala at Cabrera na nag-aakusa sa bise ng unexplained wealth, wala naman umanong naipakitang financial records at ni isang salin ng bise. Nang naisumite lang daw ito sa Kamara, sinimulang maghanap ng ebidensya. Aniya, hindi ganyan ang due process at protektado pa rin ng batas ang akusado. Pero giit ni Jokno, ang hinahanap ng korte ay katotohanan na siyang dapat mangibabaw. Pakinggan natin ang kanilang mga pahayag.
Due process requires, Your Honor, that we also respect the protections afforded by law on the respondent. Hindi po namin sinasabi na kung sakaling nagkamali man ang vice-presidente, kung sakaling may paglabag man sa batas ang vice-presidente noon, ay hindi na pwedeng maparusahan. Marami naman pong paraan. You can file cases against the vice president for those infractions, preterm infractions. Pero pag impeachment po ang pinag-uusapan, we are limited to what impeachable offenses are. And again, the Supreme Court is clear about that.
The real issue before this honorable court is, will the subpoenas that we are asking be issued by this court actually deprive the respondent of any form of due process?
Isa rin sa pinagtalunan ang confidentiality ng tax records at halaga nito sa paglilitis. Welta ng defense. Hiling ng prosekusyon na pabuksan ang kanyang bank at tax records mula noong 2007 kung kailan hindi pa naman siya vice-presidente at hindi pa siya isang impeachable official. Maging ang record ng asawa ni VP Sara, hindi rin daw dapat isa publiko dahil hindi naman siya ang pinapa-impeach na opisyala. Pero ayon kay Jokno, kinilala ng prosekusyon ang kapangyarihan ng impeachment court na duminig sa impeachment case ng pinakamatataas na opisyal ng gobyerno. At sana daw ay gamitin ng korte ang extraordinary powers nito na pabuksan ang nasabing mga dokumento dahil maging sa Bank Secrecy Law ay nakasaad daw na kabilang sa exemption ay ang impeachment case. Says, kanina-kanina nga ay natapos na ang impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte para sa ikalawang linggo. No? Pero bago matapos yan ay sinabi ng prosekusyon na may mga bagong kasama sa listahan ng kanilang mga testigo na hindi na nila iharap sa impeachment court. No? Ayon kay lead prosecutor from the House of Representatives na si Attorney Jervil Ruistro ay hindi na raw umano mahalaga yung kanilang mga testimonya. No? Kasama dyan sa mga hindi na ipepresentang witness ang dalawang mamamahayag na present doon sa viral at online press conference ni VP Sara noong 2024 at hindi na rin paharapin ang representative from the PNP Firearms and Explosives Office, ang sheriff na si Abby Andres, yung umano'y sinuntok ni VP Sara Duterte a decade ago, ang isang psychiatrist at ang family member ng alleged victims of the threats. Kanina din no, ay pinag-usapan yung bakit daw maraming sinasabi at tila dagdag no, na impormasyon na sinasabi ang lead counsel at ang lead prosecutor ng prosekusyon. No? Kasi no, kung maaari daw sabihin lamang ng prosekusyon yung pangalan ng mga witnesses na nais nilang i-withdraw sa kanilang presentation at wag na daw magdagdag ng iba pang mga impormasyon na pwede daw ay magpakumbinse sa publiko na may summation na yung kaso o tila pagdedesisyon na ang Senate Impeachment Court, no? Nila, naiintindihan nila na constitutional mechanism ito, pero mahalaga raw na masiguradong patas ang lahat ng magaganap para sa paggulong ng impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Says.
Arles, bago yung oral arguments ng dalawang panig, nagkaroon ng issue na pinalagan ni na Senator Alan Peter Cayetano bago mag-umpisa ang pagdinig.
Yes, patungkol yan doon nga raw sa sinasabi no, na tila nagkakaroon daw ng bad precedent ang pag-announce nga ni Attorney Melvin Matibag na iimbestigahan na nga yung pondo umano sa 2019 na SEA Games. No? Ang alegasyon kasi says no, ay meron daw umanong insertion sa General Appropriations Act noong taon na iyon. No? Pahayag ni Senator Pia, bakit daw tila ngayon pa no, na nagpapatuloy na yung impeachment trial at si Senator Judge Cayetano ay isa na ngang bahagi ng Senate Impeachment Court. No? Hindi raw pwede or hindi raw dapat diktahan ng isang hepe ng NBI ang takbo ng korte dahil tila iniisa-isa na rin daw sila no? At tila nagkakaroon na rin daw ng chilling effect ang mga pangyayaring ito. Says.
Thanks for your update. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos there reporting live from the Senate. And helping us to flesh out the goings-on in today's trial is constitutional scholar and former president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Domingo Igon Cayosa. Welcome back to the Big Story, Attorney Cayosa.
Good evening, Ces. Magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan.
Before we go to the oral arguments of the prosecution and defense, shall we go to Article 4, where the prosecution seems to be ready to close with their announcement of the withdrawal of witnesses that they intended to present? Did they already show enough evidence on Article 4?
That's a very welcome development, and I think from what has been admitted and what has transpired, what was testified on, and all the documentary evidence, including the videos, the prosecution has already established the fact that those utterances and threats were made, the circumstances surrounding them, as well as other related corroborating statements and investigations delving into the detail of this issue. And so I think that's a very welcome development. It's good that finally the parties, especially the councils, and we see also the part of the Senate, that they are sensitive to the sentiments and observations of people outside of the impeachment court. I think it's a general observation that the first 2 weeks have been focused too much on technicalities, and there's a need to simplify the issues and the facts and to abbreviate the proceedings.
Sa tingin ninyo, as Congressman Defensor said, tama na ang timpla?
I think so, yes. There were two competent witnesses. They knew what they were talking about, and they were sufficiently cross-examined by the defense. So you cannot squeeze too much mileage out of facts that practically everyone already knows about.
Although, with the presentation of Director Melvin Matibag on Tuesday, puro law enforcement ang witnesses nila. The other witnesses could have presented a different perspective.
But that's for the defense perhaps to introduce. We have to remember that this is only evidence for the prosecution says. So they'll be given a chance to introduce whoever witness they would think is appropriate to prove their points.
There were concerns during their press conference from the media na parang bitin, baka it's a miscalculation on their part because of the public's impatience.
Well, we cannot avoid that, but for those who know the law and the procedure, and both sides are represented by competent counsels. So we have to give that to them. So I suppose they have examined and weighed all the evidence and testimonies that have been presented so far, and it's their call. We welcome that. Any abbreviation of this proceeding is welcome for the good of everyone, both parties and the country as a whole.
Right. Now let's go to the presentation of the prosecution and defense pertaining to the financial records of the VP. Congressman Defensor said, hindi confidential ang katotohanan. Did he lay enough basis for the opening of the records or for the subpoena to be granted by the impeachment court?
I think so. Both sides, you have to understand that even before the oral arguments, they already submitted their written position papers on the matter.
Right.
And these issues are not new. These were already discussed and put to the front at the very start of the investigation of the House Committee on Justice. So it's nothing new. I suppose everyone had the chance and the time to research on this. So, and it's commendable, as the presiding officer stated, the conduct, the depth, and the brevity of the presentation of the oral arguments from both sides is commendable. They're disciplined, and we hope that will continue. And no grandstanding. Just lay your arguments and your and the basis for your arguments and your positions calmly. No drama, no, not much emotion, and let the judges decide.
Okay. Now, there was an interesting exchange on the Supreme Court decision in Duterte versus HOR, where Attorney Poa cited a portion of that decision where hindi dapat overbroad yung scope ng impeachment. But Congressman Jokno cited in his response, said, obiter dicta lang yun, kumbaga parang side comment lang. So, please elucidate on this para maintindihan po namin, talaga bang that constitutes now law of the land? Because when Congressman Jokno pointed out that during the Corona impeachment trial, this was allowed, but Attorney Poa said this was before that decision by the Supreme Court.
Well, the doctrine of a case becomes doctrine, or the rule of the case, or becomes law in effect, only if it is the ruling or the rationale or the citations pertaining to the issue in that particular case. And I think it was smart, and we would expect that from the prosecution to call that out, because we could understand any lawyer can pick out and take portions from a decision or a law that, of course, favors his client. But you have to be more thorough and careful than that. Because unfortunately, the Supreme Court, when it comes up with decisions, they settle the main issue, the real issue, and then they add, flores and some other things that are not necessary to really decide the constitutional issue in a case. So that's what we call obiter. Parang pasakaya lang yan, surpluses. It's not really...
In passing,
yes.
Parang ganon.
Yes, they're not necessary. So they're surpluses. So it doesn't really settle the particular issue. So if that's the case, it is settled the doctrine that they are not really the controlling statements or quotations or reasons. So you go back to a case where that particular issue was settled, and that's where you cite jurisprudence or the decision of the Supreme Court. So I think it was...
Kasi po hindi yun ang main issue dun sa desisyon ng Supreme Court. Tama po ba?
Yes. Yes. So iba kasi yung issue dito sa Duterte case. It was about the express impeachment. Hindi naman yung mga evidence and yung mga opening or subpoena, getting subpoenas for documents or records.
Okay. And still on the matter of approving that subpoena, Congressman Jokno cited that in the Corona impeachment case or trial, it was Senator Alan Peter Cayetano who asked that they go back to the opening balance of the account or of then Chief Justice Corona. So will that come to bite him now if in case he opposes the granting of the subpoena?
Well, one indication of fairness or integrity of any decision is that, given similar situations, you would maintain your earlier position. So it is for you to explain now why you are taking a different stand. So, it's very challenging for anybody to change his mind. Or, as judges or even as persons, as human beings, you are measured by the consistency of your stand and similar things. So I think it was wise for Congressman Jokno to raise that, to bring it very close to the impeachment court. They were there during the Corona impeachment. We cannot contemplate or support a position where if it's a different respondent, you rule differently, given the same circumstances and the same constitution, the same powers of the Senate, and the same laws.
So his vote will be watched closely.
Yeah, of course, we should watch everyone, but for those who've been very vocal and those suspected of being something else beyond being a judge, everybody would be watching them and everybody would be critical about their decisions.
Well, a curious thing, before they could even begin, Senator Robin Padilla stood up, and then it was Senator Alan Peter Cayetano and then his sister, pertaining to the investigation into the 2019 SEA Games hosting by the Philippines. Does this come at an unfortunate time? Why only now? I mean, it's been the event happened in 2019.
But we don't know the details of this. But if you listen very carefully to what the NBI director said, these are existing cases. These are not new cases. It only reveals the fact that in our country, depending who you are, sometimes the cases against you are shelved for the meantime. So if these are existing active cases, there's nothing wrong with pursuing them. Of course, they have to look at the context of how he said this. Was it really a threat? And if you're innocent, you should not be threatened by any of these things. So we don't know. I suppose it was also fair for them to wait for Director Matibag before they make all of these claims. Let's hear his side. But, a sitting senator or even an impeachment court judge cannot exempt himself and, stop any investigation against him if there's enough basis. We have to understand that these are not new cases. So we will see.
It's not like the case was revived just now, but it's been an active case.
Yes, at that time, it was a very controversial case, but we don't know what happened to them. So should we not welcome if all of this, and not only that of Senator Kay, everybody else, as we try the impeachment case where there's much allegation about irregularities and corruption, should we not finish this quickly and go to the other cases? It should be sana all.
Tama naman po. We can't leave that hanging as well.
Yes, and everybody who has been tarnished or accused or suspected of any anomaly in that, they should welcome that, this case are finished and, brought to their logical conclusion.
Another, going back to the subpoena argument, it was pointed out by Attorney Poa in his argumentation that the AMLA report, which is now also part of the evidence submitted by the prosecution, was obtained illegally because they are not supposed to reveal that publicly in the Justice Committee hearing of the House. Is he correct in saying that?
I doubt the legal basis for him saying that. So we have to understand that these are public records. These are not private property. And even if they are private. Your right to privacy is not absolute, especially so if you are a public official, and especially so if these documents are necessary to resolve a pending case. That's very basic. The judiciary, the judicial branch, any court, or in this case, the impeachment court, can legally subpoena documents that are material and relevant to the case at hand. The broader doctrine there is that you cannot use your right to privacy or even an existing law to shield you from a legitimate investigation and to block the truth from coming out. So I don't know where's that coming from, but it's for the senators to look at the details of their citations. They submitted anyway a lengthy memorandum. I suppose many of those things could not be covered in a 10-minute oral argument. So it's for the staff of the senators or the senators themselves to check out the citations.
Okay. Now, the second week is done. Ano po ang assessment niyo so far ng conduct of the impeachment court?
Well, it's water under the bridge. In hindsight now, after all the admissions and after all what we've heard from the two witnesses, it seems there are just too many witnesses listed in the both sides. So it's also obvious that the Senate did not make use of the pre-trial stage to discover more things and get the parties to agree on facts that cannot be disputed anymore. And that's why we're wasting a lot of time on details that should not be necessary anymore. Thirdly, it's obvious that the Senate itself, the impeachment court, is divided. And then we also see an undue, at least the past 2 weeks, undue direction or emphasis on technicalities, when in fact the issues here, the facts are very simple, the issues are very simple. The Senate should move towards reframing the issues and the arguments so that we go directly to the point, not on the peripherals and the technicalities. But we also see that because I suppose they hear, being politicians, they're also sensitive to what others say, and it's quite prevalent and common. That practically everybody says we're bored by all these details. Tumbukin na natin ano bang katotohanan. Ito ba impeachment and they are liable or it's the respondent liable.
Opo. So the 90-day timeline is still doable, achievable?
I think so. If they want to. It's also surprising. Of course, they have many reasons, but it's surprising that they would need the weekend to review again their research on these issues, because the issue on for example, the subpoenas, these are not new issues. I suppose, and we expect that their staff have done their research. We suppose that the position papers are quite exhaustive. So mukhang mas prepared yung mga abogado ng magkabilang panig kesa sa mga hukom.
O yun na nga eh, hindi po sana kung gusto nilang pabilisin, ngayon na sila nagdesisyon.
Yeah, I mean, we hope, or we expect, and we hope that the Senate Impeachment Court will do better, do more homework, and they should be more prepared than the parties. Hindi maganda yung passive sila and then hintayin muna natin and then saka sila magtatanong. Because if they do their homework, there'll be less questions. Mas mabilis ang proseso.
It was observed as well that some senators would leave the premises and, come back later on. Hindi ho ba dapat makita na parang, because it's really their role to be able to be judicious in their decisions and to really weigh what's presented to them.
Well, that's true. That's a valid observation. As we all claim, this is a very important case. So they should give priority to it. We could understand if you have to go to the comfort room for to relieve yourself in some very essential things. But, if you're meeting somebody else there, you should schedule that some other time, not at the time you're there. So it is very important, says, for the senators, not only to help us discover the truth and for them to weigh the evidence and decide, it's equally important that they show the public that sineseryoso nila ito, fair sila, walang kinikiligan, because the integrity and credibility of the impeachment court is also very important for our people to accept whatever verdict they may come up with.
They are on trial as well, in a manner of speaking. Attorney.
Definitely. We have to understand they are elected representatives of the people every election time. We also measure them and give back to them what we perceive them to be. You know, are they worthy of being elected? Can we trust these people? Are they doing the job well? You know? Even all of us says the whole nation, I think, is a trial here, because if our country says okay lang mga ito, and the senators as politicians is quasi-political, see that we don't care about corruption, we don't care about abusing power, we don't care about violence, and then our threshold for forgiveness or for justifying these things is very high, hindi tayo galit, hindi tayo sawa, then the senators might just adopt our thinking as a country and say, hindi naman galit, hindi naman agrabyado ang taong bayan dito, okay lang naman pala kasi kalakalan na yan, di ba? Everybody else does it. So, unta lang tayo mag-convict. That's possible. So in that sense, this country, every Filipino is also at trial here.
You're right. Now, final question, how to keep the ordinary Filipino interested? You go outside and they're going about their business, eking a livelihood, and not really paying much attention, I guess, until there are recaps from yung mga sinusundan po nilang news or bloggers. Paano po, how can we keep them interested? What is at stake here?
Well, that very crucial ang role ng mass media dito, especially the professional journalists like you who vet things out, you hear both sides, because the challenge now is the battle also, the politics of this is the battle of the hearts and minds of the people,
right,
and even the values as a people, di ba? So are we numb to dishonesty? Are we numb to abuse, to violence? May pinanggalingan na tayo eh. So nalimutan na ba natin yan? O since hopeless na tayo, okay na lang yan. So the role of mass media is to bring forward the accurate facts and to generate feedback from different people, not only lawyers but ordinary people, and give that back to the senators and to insist that there is transparency. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you don't do your job well, you're correct. People will get disinterested, and guess what? The trolls are not even here. They're not web source. These are algorithms. These are foreign companies or groups, perhaps. Bayaran lang. Yun ang mamamayani. So baka maniniwala ang taong bayan dun sa mga fake news, mga fake claims, mga slanting misrepresentations, and that would be very unfortunate for this country. Na nabubuo yung national consciousness and our level of tolerance or our anger towards kakurakutan, abuso, katiwian. This is shaped by not the reality but fake news.
Right. We are on trial as well. Marami pong salamat and thank you for that reminder. Always a pleasure having you on the program and sharing your insights, Attorney Igon Cayosa. Salamat po. You're watching The Big Story in One News. When we return, find out why Presiding Officer Ces Escudero only has praises for prosecution and defense lawyers who held oral arguments today. Stay tuned.
Nais kong sambitin sa record na binabati ko ang magkabilang panig, partikular si Congressman the Honorable Chel Jokno, gayon din si Attorney Poa, sa isang mahinahon, malumanay, maginoo at magalang na diskurso at debate kaugnay sa may tuturing nating kontrobersyal na isyong ito.
Impeachment Court Presiding Officer Ces Escudero there, all praises for Prosecutor Chel Jokno and counsel to Respondent Michael Poa. The two opposing lawyers had a very calm discourse earlier in the day as they led oral arguments on whether or not to open the so-called green box. That box, already returned to the BIR, contains the tax records of Vice President Sara Duterte and her husband, Mans Carpio. And you're still watching the big story here in One News. Detained Senator Rodante Barcoleta is now locked up at the new Quezon City Jail male dormitory in Payatas. The Sandigan Bayan ordered the transfer after medical experts declared the lawmaker fit for jail. The BJMP confirmed that Marcoleta was committed to the facility at 10:49 this morning. PGH findings show the senator has recovered from pneumonia, but doctors still advise that he remain isolated.
Hospital, a team of doctors from the Department of Medicine na ang mga findings na nakita ng July 6 sa PNP General Hospital nag-improve na. Yung x-ray, nag-clear up na yung pneumonia, yung kanyang hypertension, controlled na. Senator Marcoleta is fit to attend court proceedings.
The Sandigan Bayan will first resolve Marcoleta's motion to quash before discussing his bid for bail. Co-accused Mike Defensor, Joseph Espiritu, and Aristotel Viray pleaded not guilty during their arraignment today. Plunder pre-trial is set for August 10. And overseas, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to strike Iran's bridges and power plants next week if the Persian nation does not return to peace talks. He said American negotiators had conveyed this message to their Iranian counterparts on Tuesday. Trump's statement came after he reversed a threat of a 20% fee on all Strait of Hormuz cargo shipping. Trump, however, ordered the resumption of blockades on Iranian ports.
So I put it out yesterday. I thought it was good. I was called by different people, different countries, kings and emirs and all of the people that we all know and we all love, and they've been very strong partners. And they said, we'd love to do it a different way. We'd love to invest in the United States with billions and billions of dollars. And I like that, actually, because I don't think anybody should be able to charge a fee for the strait or for any other strait relationship in terms of other sections of the world.
Shipping traffic through the strait has since slowed dramatically. The benchmark Brent crude oil price has also risen sharply. U.S. Central Command said it hit dozens of Iranian military targets near the Strait of Hormuz with the aim of further degrading Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping. Meanwhile, Tehran fired missiles and drones on U.S. targets in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain. And now back here at home, on a much lighter note, Filipino tennis sensation Alex Ayala drew massive crowds in Makati for the fourth day of her homecoming tour. Fans packed the venue as early as noon, filling up to the second floor just to catch a glimpse of their idol. This follows Ayala's historic run at Wimbledon, where she became the first Filipina to reach the round of 16. Her feat pushed her world ranking to a career high number 28. And just this Monday, the 21-year-old received a presidential citation for bringing honor to the nation. Ayala next heads back to training after drawing a first-round bye in the hard courts of the 2026 Mubadala City DC Open. This is a big story on One News, and coming up is a palace press officer's response to recent statements from the president's sister and vice president. And as usual, Yusek Claire Castro did not mince words. Back in a bit. The big story is back with more headlines this midweek from mobile journalist Imee Atienza.
Angat Dam continues to fall below the 160-meter critical level as the country braces for the El Nino phenomenon. On July 15, Angat Dam's water level fell further to 155.98 meters from the previous day's 156.34 meters. Note that the reservoir's normal water level should be at 210 meters. An official from Maynila admits that the southwest monsoon and future rainfalls will not make any difference to replenish Angat Dam.
Sobrang natuyo po yung lupa dun sa watershed. So whatever rains that will be happening in the next few days, that will allow us lang po na to saturate muna yung soil, and then after that dun lang po magkakaroon ng significant inflow dun sa ating watershed to be stored dun sa dam.
Another official from the West Zone concessionaire assures customers supply remains normal but urges mindfulness in consuming water.
Prioritize po natin yung ating paggamit ng tubig for essential needs talaga. So yung syempre hindi naman tayo dapat na magtipid to the point na i-compromise natin ang ating kalusugan at kalinisan. So hindi po ganon. Ensure lang natin na yung ating pangangailangan.
Meantime, the Department of Labor and Employment has moved to July 25 the implementation of the first tranche of the 85 peso minimum wage hike in Metro Manila. Minimum wage earners will get an additional 60 pesos starting next week. Tranche 2, which adds 25 pesos more in workers' daily take-home pay, will take effect on January 20, 2027. DOLE Secretary Francis Tolentino explained the official wage order was only published on July 9 and will only be effective 15 days after publication. And the live-in partner of slain American marine biologist Kent Carpenter is now one of two persons of interest in the case. Carpenter was killed inside his home in Negros Oriental on July 12. His live-in partner initially claimed having been sexually assaulted during the incident, but police has yet to find evidence of such incident.
We already subjected her to for vaginal swab. Na it yielded negative. Po sa kiniklaim niya na she was sexually assaulted, it is still under investigation po. Kasi wala pa po nagpo-prove po. Hindi po natin masabi po na siya ay involved po. Basta po sa ngayon po, since she was left alive, probably po baka kilala or kilala siya ng mga suspects, tapos baka hindi lang po niya kilala yung mga suspect. Parang ganun po. We are considering those angles po.
Also named person of interest is the sister of Carpenter's partner. For now, police are not seeing his job as marine biologist as motive for the murder. Carpenter's colleagues are now demanding justice. The Advocates of Science and Technology for the People, or AGHAM, emphasizes Carpenter's role in protecting Verde Island passage from several gas projects, while Father Edwin Garrigues of the Protect the Verde Island Passage group calls for the protection of environmental defenders like Carpenter who dedicate their lives for science and the community. Kapatid Imee Atienza, VR 1 News.
Malacañang is lashing out at Vice President Sara Duterte. The VP earlier said there is no evidence to support the complaint of grave threats against her as being discussed in a historic impeachment trial. Yesterday, NBI official Jeremy Lotok testified on why they charged the VP with grave threats and inciting to sedition. That's following her kill remarks against President Marcos, wife Lisa, and cousin former Speaker Martin Romualdez back in November of 2024. Duterte argued no threats ever existed, no assassin was contracted, and evidence against her were fabricated. But Palace Press Officer Claire Castro rebuked this.
It was the Vice President who admitted in this video that she had already talked to a person who was willing to kill the President, the First Lady, and the House Speaker. Ano pa ba ang dapat na patunayan? Mismo ang abogado niya ang nag-justify kung bakit niya nasabi ang ganong klaseng mga salita. Unconventional, hindi normal na pagkilos at pananalita o pag-react. Ang burden of evidence ay nagsishift sa tao na umamin na siya ay magpapapatay.
Castro also slammed the vice president's defense team for downplaying their client's threats as a mere response to a question.
Isang katawa-tawa ang ganyang mga pahayag. Unang-una, hindi ito lihim. Lahat ng tao halos nakapanood. Hindi lang sa Pilipinas, kundi sa buong mundo. Again, hindi ito simpleng grave threats. Sa grave threats, kahit hindi kaharap yung taong pinagbantaan, basta nalaman niya, consummated ang crime.
Meanwhile, Castro also addressed Senator Imee Marcos's recent statement. The presidential sister demanded that her brother disclose any agreements with the International Criminal Court. The ICC is now the subject of a pressure campaign from the United States.
Anong dapat i-disclose? Meron ba siyang alam na dapat i-disclose? O wala kaming alam kung ano yung gusto niyang i-disclose. So siya muna siguro ang bigay ng anumang impormasyon. Kung meron siyang alam na dapat i-disclose, at least makakaalam kami kung ano yun.
And before we go this story, we have a new addition to the Signal family. And telling us about it is mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. Denise, what's the latest?
Sus, it is official. NCAA has found a new home through the Signal family. This became official through a contract signing earlier in Makati City. Of course, present in this contract signing, we have NCAA Philippines Policy Board President Father Aloysius M.A. Maranan and MediaQuest Holdings Incorporated Chairman Manuel D. Pangalinan and MediaQuest Holdings Incorporated President and CEO Victorico P. Vargas. With this partnership, NCAA continues its broadcasting throughout season 102 and 103, meaning the partnership will be 2 years between Signal and NCAA. For the full broadcasting rights of Signal for NCAA, they will be covering volleyball, basketball, and cheerleading competitions. Meanwhile, for the other sports, Signal promised its broadcasting rights for other types of coverage for its other sports. For season 102, it will be Sanbeda, who is the official host of NCAA. And we are yet to see what kind of partnership we can expect, but expect that Signal will broadcast NCAA through YouTube. It's pay TV, it's free TV, as well as Signal Play for this partnership, says.
So it's a fitting way also to mark the birthday of MVP. Thank you so much for your reporting. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho there. And those are the big stories this midweek. I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon. Kapatid, we are One News, your side, all the time. Good night.